Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our first resistance training here in the New England Conference. It's great to see you here. As we join together, we know that in person, many people have stayed home because of the snow, and most of our viewers are here online. And so it's great to have you all here to be a part of this with us. I'm going to give a moment for our host, Pastor John Whitley, to come and share with us a hello and a greeting and other sort of things we need to know. So come on, John.
Right. Is this where I stand? All right.
That right there is good.
Welcome to everybody online, and welcome to those of you who have come in person. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to host this event. For those of you who are with us here in the flesh, just a couple of housekeeping items. Our restrooms are down the hall there. You passed them on your way in. And we have goodies and such off to the side there. Unfortunately, those of you who are at home can't partake in our goodies this morning, but we wish you were here. It's a joy to be able to host you this morning, and thank you for choosing Aldersgate in Chelmsford to host this event. We appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Obviously, as John was pointing out the restrooms here, if you are at home, find your own. Is where that goes. As we get started here, we have one of our clergy in our conference who had a chance to go to Minneapolis recently and had an experience there to share with us as an opening devotional about her experience there, and also to ground us in our spiritual truth of who we are. And so I'm going to invite Becca Grill to come and share with us a devotional for our gathering this morning.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for turning out however you've been able to do that today. That matters. We are an incarnational people, but our presence can be just as strongly and importantly felt when we are able to gather in this way. So I'm grateful for that. I am Becca Gorell. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a clergy person in Vermont. And if we could have people at home mute their devices, that will be helpful. Thank you. So I'm a clergy person in Vermont. I serve the United Community Church of Morrisville, which is a United Methodist and United Church of Christ congregation, one of our newer United churches in both conferences, the Methodist and the UCC conference. And on February 16th, March, that's multiracial, anti-racist change and healing. It's what March stands for. It's a religious-based interfaith organizing group based in Minneapolis. Issued a call for clergy from around the country to come and join them. And my neighboring colleague and friend, Rabbi David Fainsilber of the Jewish community of Greater Stowe, asked if I would travel with him. His friend was one of the people issuing the call, and he felt deeply moved to be there, and we went together. I did not understand the assignment at first. I thought we were going to go protest. There was a march, and some people participated in that. But we were really there to provide respite for the faith leaders on the ground who are exhausted, and we were there to learn how to take the model of witness and resistance that's happening in Minneapolis and share that. And once I understood the assignment, it was an honor to do so. So what I want to share with you this morning is not a grounding in the scriptural reasons of why we protect our neighbors or do this work at all. I think you know that. So I don't need to read you from Exodus 22, 21. You shall not harm or oppress the foreigner living among you because you were once foreigners in Egypt. I don't even need to read you this week's lectionary text that reminds you that we are light for the world and we are salt for the earth. And as New Englanders in the midst of a snowstorm, we know what salt does to ice. So I don't need to remind you of that. I want to remind us of how we do this work and the theological and sort of psychosocial reasons and grounding for how we do this work. My most important learning, logistical learning in Minneapolis is that there's no leader for this resistance. Leadership is diffuse. Leadership is randomized and all people everywhere. It's little communities, just neighborhoods, a few blocks, gathering together to support their neighbors and organizing themselves. There's no person calling the shots. And that is the strength of this type of movement, because we are stronger together. And we know that as a body, we are stronger together with all parts functioning in our different ways. And that was also a spiritual learning. On the first day we were gathered together, one of the leaders said, "Look out here, there are 600, 700 faith leaders all clustered together." And she said, "We could have this, and we can have this, and we must have this level of connection with each other and support of one another all the time and everywhere. This is how we work together." And this is my cat, Tucker, who is also stronger when he's with us. So what I want to share with you, the other really powerful part of my experience is that it was interfaith. I was traveling with my colleague who is a rabbi. I spent most of my time with a group of rabbis and one lone Methodist. I journeyed through this experience with people who carry epigenetic trauma in their bones about incarceration and genocide as well. And so that was powerful. And people who also carry epigenetic resilience that comes from our shared faith and teaching from the prophets. So that Friday, I attended synagogue at Shir Tikva in South Minneapolis, and Assistant Rabbi Joey Glick shared this Torah and Midrash, and I'm going to try to recreate his brief reflection. Maybe you've been here. The prophet, alone, feeling alone, in the throne room, with the sovereign and his advisors and his might aligned behind him. And the prophet's mouth goes dry, his palms sweaty, and his mind completely blank. The prophet is there to deliver a message from God Most High, a warning to implore this king to let God's people go, to tell this king of the plague that will come if he does not. But the prophet can't remember what he was supposed to say. And between his stuttering heartbeats, the prophet feels like an ant and feels like his people are little ants crushed beneath the heel of this mighty sovereign. No, not ants, the prophet thinks. Ants live in a colony, and they have a queen, they have a leader, they have somebody who tells them what to do and where to go and how to act, and the prophet's people have no one. They are not a colony. And if they have any leader at all, it's the prophet himself, and that's a terrifying thought. With a stuttering beat of his heart, the prophet realizes, no, we are not a colony or a hive or well-organized machine with a queen or a leader. We're just a swarm. And then another beat of his heart, and the prophet thinks of the leaf cutters and the grasshoppers, the locusts, and how they swarm. No leader. No one head insect that you can take out and make the whole thing stop. Their song of their bodies humming together, drowning out some of the loudest songs around them. And as they move through the proud crops and fields, they can overtake anything in their path, and they move with a murmuration, not as an organized colony, but as a collective, as a swarm, because they are indeed stronger together. One more beat of his heart, and the prophet lifts his eyes. Moses pierces Pharaoh with his gaze, and he says, God has told you to let my people go, and in your stubbornness you do not. And so tomorrow, God's going to bring it. We will bless. We will sing. We will swarm. God's bringing locusts. May we be a swarm, a murmuration of locusts, for we are stronger together.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you very much for your sharing. I can invite Wee Chang to kick us off with a word of prayer, and then we'll introduce our speakers.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thank you, Becca, and thank you all who have braved this weather to be present in your own warmth and safe place. Thank you so much. I know, I just couldn't resist. On behalf of our Bishop, Thomas J. Bickerton, I bring greetings and deep appreciation for you being here to, I would say, live out your baptismal vows. One of the important baptismal covenant is to resist. Bishop is in a meeting with the all connection of Global Methodist Church in Europe today, so he sends his regrets, but he is with us in spirit. So please know that he's with you and praying for you. When God created the creation, one of the important component of that creation was breath, isn't it? God breathed onto the nostril of that dirt, and it became a living thing. The air we breathe is the gift from God. And as long as there's air, we will have a life of God, the hope of God, and justice of God. So let's open up with a breathing prayer. Let's breathe in. And let's breathe out. As we breathe in one more time, let's open ourselves to receive this gift of life of God, the spirit of love and justice and peace. And as we breathe out, let our breath be the sign of our commitment to continue that the breath, that life of God's love and justice around us and in every corner of this world. Let's breathe in and let's breathe out. Breathe on us the breath of God. Make us and all things anew, so that we and all your people in this world can breathe in and breathe out only your love, your life, your compassion, and your justice, right now and always. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Wee. Today, I want to introduce you to some new friends, Laura and Audrey. They join us from the Granite State Organizing Project, which is the Faith in Action group in New Hampshire. They've been doing a number of trainings this week, and we're glad to have them come and share with us their insights. So come and be a part of this with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's going to be a little bit of a, we've not done the double technology thing before, so it's going to be a little bit of a wrangle for making sure that slides are happening here and then slides are happening here.
Yeah.
So, I think we're
So
gonna
we
need
need
to
a
switch
moment.
over.
Yeah,
We're gonna
we need-
switch over really quickly just to make sure that we have slides on the wall.
Tech.
And then I think we gotta put, slides onto
Mhm.
there. So give us one moment.
For them to see the live.
Yeah, you should share your screen. Do you have the slides?
Yeah, they're up.
Yeah.
Just click this.
And then, yep. Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna kind of keep moving as Laura is putting slides up. And then we're gonna kind of switch off as to somebody's sort of monitoring the chat and somebody's in the room. So bear with us as we go through. So we will be sharing these slides afterwards. So if you're like a note taker and you're like, I gotta get everything that's happening on these slides, we're gonna have that happening. So no worries. I'm gonna move to the next slide. So really quickly, we'd love you to just turn to the person next to you and spend a few moments sharing why you're here, right? It's snowy outside or it's a Saturday morning. You could basically be anywhere in the world, like, I mean, maybe not everywhere in the world, but like you could be anywhere doing anything, but you've chosen to spend your morning with us doing this. So let's just take a few moments. And if you are on Zoom, just put it in the chat so we can all kind of see where everybody's at. Go ahead. We'll do the next like few minutes. We're here because we want to teach this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we mute it, yeah.
Mm, yeah.
All right, let's bring it back. So in the chat, I was seeing a lot of information and some shares around basically nonviolent resistance. Just in the room, quick popcorn, what are some sort of themes that you were noticing, or maybe the things that you noticed about the shares that you had with each other?
Concern for when ICE might show up in your neighborhood or in your church.
Okay, yeah,
Controlling. Coming together as a faith community and praying for God's guidance on us.
I'm trying to control anger.
controlling anger. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, so one of the things we'll be talking about specifically, we'll talk specifically about rapid response is going to be kind of the specifics around this. There are going to be more specific like nonviolent action trainings in the future. So this one we're just going to ground us in specific to rapid response, which is going to look different depending on your community. So this is one of those things that this training we've started in New Hampshire specifically, and things will change as we go along. So let me just put these out here. All right, so things we're specifically going to talk about today is monitoring and documenting ICE arrests. And again, we've been doing this training in New Hampshire, so this is our first time bringing it to like a bigger contingency. We want to provide support to those who are detained, and we also want to support families left behind after detention. So in New Hampshire specifically, we've been documenting this information and we've started to create, there is some community and there's some mutual aid, right? One of the things that you have benefit of that that Becca talked about, and I think is extremely important, is just the concept of community and having these different groups that are organized. So that's one of those big conversations that we're going to keep, talking about as we go through this training. What is de-escalation? So you can either put it in the chat or just popcorn, like what's de-escalation? To you, doesn't have to be like the legal definition.
Keeping it down,
Keeping it down,
not taking the bait.
not taking the bait. What is it? Or what's the bait?
Escalating behaviors.
Behaviors. Okay. Yeah. So de-escalation is something that we want to keep in mind with any of these interactions. So who here has actually had a physical interaction with ICE? Nobody. Who has, and maybe in the chat, maybe there were some hands raised again, I'm trying to go in between here. Who has seen ICE interactions on the internet, on the news? Okay. So a lot of us have had interactions with ICE, but not in a body to body area. But something to understand, right, about our minds is when our minds understand something and our minds perceive something, our body perceives it as reality. So even these things that we've consumed, right, this information we've consumed, when we're thinking about this, our body is perceiving it. So we're going to have a lot of sort of pre-programmed perceptions of what's happening with ICE, right? We have some pre-programmed perceptions. And we're going to try to ground you in like being with what is exactly happening in front of you, because you're going to come in with a lot of things, right? Your body's going to come in with a lot of things. So de-escalation, a lot of this is going to be how you are being present in your body, right? We talked about the breath earlier. Breathing is going to help you to stay present. And we're going to do some grounding exercises at the end of this training as well. So we'll give you some more tools around that. Keeping your voice low, right? So what we're talking about is coming into a situation that may be escalated, right? Something may already be happening, and we don't want to be coming in with a fire, you know, in gasoline and creating a more elevated nervous system state, right? If you're coming into a situation, right, you're not coming in as a confrontational individual. You're coming in a calm body. You're breathing. You can feel your feet on the ground, right? You're not coming at a situation. You're maybe coming in a little bit sideways. So you're just coming in as a calm presence to be documenting, right? Staying neutral and calm. Something to point out that I don't think I mentioned on the previous slide is that we're not here to stop detentions. Okay, you're here to document and be safe. We're not trying to stop anything. And that might be very difficult, right? You may want to jump in and sort of and stop something, especially if you feel like injustice is happening. But we're here to document. All right, we're here to record and stay safe. Something else to consider is, depending on the context, there may be people in the scene that are already escalated. So we may come in to try to be a calm presence. All right, this is the rapid response protocol. And again, this is going to be specific to what we are currently doing. And this is developing, all of this stuff is developing, and it may be different in your specific communities, depending on what's happening in your community. What's that?
I said this is, unless you want to do this part.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
So spots.
Yeah, this is, sorry, I'm gonna stand. I'm not fully off script yet, so I have my notes. So this is the information we've seen in New Hampshire, because that's where our responses are specific to. We do know that it's not true for all of New England. I know that you guys have seen the raids that have been happening on coastal Maine. This is on a day-to-day in a normal version of what we've seen. So in New Hampshire, there aren't raids, there aren't large-scale operations. There's 8 of them. There's 8 ICE officers. They all function and move as a unit, and they are targeting specific people. So they know where they live, they know where they work, and they're waiting for them outside of the buildings, or outside of their apartment, and they're waiting for them to go into a public area, and they're taking one specific person. They're in and out in like less than 5 minutes. By the time we see it happen, we get hotline call and we show up. Usually it's already over, because they're so specific on who they're getting. And they are not really identified. They're not wearing anything that says ICE on it. Sometimes it says police. Sometimes it'll say like ERO, which is like enforcement and removal officers. And we'll go over like more specifics about what they look like as far as like their cars and the people. But they are fairly chill right now, which is easier for us to document and go into de-escalate. But also part of the training is going to go over what happens if their behavior starts to turn up the temperature. And yeah, this is true as of today. Tomorrow, there may be a massive raid in Manchester and everything we know is wrong. So I'm gonna start by going, what are we asking you to do if you see ICE? And then we'll go into specifics on what the protocol looks like. When you're called to a response, if ICE shows up where you are, whatever the case may be, we want you to be focusing on recording the environment and not the detainee, because all of the other information is super important. For organizations that are organizing response teams, we want to know what cars they're driving today, what the license plate numbers on those cars look like, what uniforms they're wearing, which is usually not, but like, are they wearing the same army green hoodie every time? So we can pick up on their patterns to make our life easier to respond to them. But you also want to be making sure that you're getting like the street signs, if there's a business with a sign in the background, so that if the documentation ends up needing to go to court, you can place where they are and when it happened. Getting other bystanders in the picture is also great for two reasons. One, they may see something that you didn't because they got there before you, or they see a different angle. And so having their face, so we can maybe track them down easier, is going to be helpful. But also if they escalate the situation later, it's nice to have their face. And they also may want to join in our resistance when they see it happen. So having them is helpful. And then, yeah, getting communications between the agents. We want to know which one of them's in charge. Just anything that you can observe is the most helpful thing. And if they have any paperwork, they never do. But if they happen to have paperwork in hand, you can ask to see it, and you can like hold it up to your camera so that we can get a glimpse of it, just to show that it's most likely not an actual valid judicially signed warrant. Because again, it'll help with the detainee's court later, possibly. So this is the ideal situation. If everything were to go right, what happens is somebody calls a hotline, and there are hotlines all over the place. We have the information. GSOP is running one statewide in New Hampshire, but there's a bunch all over the place, so you can find a local one to you. There's information at the very end that'll help with that. And then we get a Signal chat message. Are we all familiar with what Signal is? Yes. Okay. So if not, very brief, it's a double encrypted secure messenger that you can download onto your phone or your computer. So it's the safest way that we know of to be able to send communications like this. And then there are specific Signal chat groups to sections and regions of the state. So like I live in one place and I work 30 minutes away. I'm in both chats because if I'm at work, I might be able to help there. You're going to see a message there that says ICE reporting at the mobile gas station on the corner of Elm and Main. If you can go, you would respond with like, I'm on my way. My ETA is 3 minutes. A real life example in Nashua happened. Reverend Allison Palm from the UU church responded because it was like 2 blocks away from her church and she was at church, which was great. She's in the rapid response group. She did the training with me a year and a half ago for the first time. And she said, I'm on my way. I'm going to bring my music director. We'll be there in 2 minutes. If you can't go, don't say anything, because the information in that chat is now your lifeline when you're on scene. And so you need to know what the, like, where was it again? I know it was in this neighborhood, but what specific gas station or what specific house number was it at? We don't want to flood that with information when there's a scene actively happening. And so what we're recommending, primarily what we've seen with Minneapolis, but there's also a group, civil rights attorney and advocate of some kind, I don't remember. They just did a study of the gun violence that has happened on ICE abduction scenes, and over 85% of them, when there was gun violence, has happened when the victim of the gun violence was in a vehicle. They weren't doing anything wrong most of the time, but they were in a vehicle. So the ICE agents are overreacting when a vehicle is on scene. So keep your car at least a block away. It'll give you a couple of things. Easy egress. If the situation gets out of hand and you choose to remove yourself, you don't have to worry about all of the police cars blocking your roadway. You can actually walk to your car and safely leave. It's also not going to be perceived that your car is a weapon because you don't have it. And that walk from the car to the scene gives you opportunity to ground yourself back down. Because as much as we can prepare you, I'll do this training 47,000 times. And when I go onto a scene, my heart rate is still going to be pumping. So having that moment to breathe, and Audrey will go over some exercises that you can do in that time, is just important, because if you show up hot, you're going to make the situation worse. If you get there and there's ice there, you can just say like ice confirmed and then immediately start recording. Telling the chat that ice is there is important for two reasons. One, so that we know if you go silent for 3 hours, that we should probably look for your arrest. But also to call off or keep coming later responders. So like maybe I'm 10 minutes away, but you were 4 minutes away. I know that I still need to come, as opposed to if you show up and they're not there, maybe I can turn around. And then you start recording the scene, start recording the ICE agents as soon as you get there. And then information that is helpful, if you feel comfortable and the situation feels safe to do so, talking to the person who's being detained, starting by saying, I'm here to help you. Because you're just another stranger face in what is probably one of the most horrific moments of their life. So being able to calmly state, hey, I'm here to help you, is going to hopefully help them have just a second, and also possibly allow them to provide you information that we need. Getting their name is helpful so we can find them in the detainee locator, and also what do we call this human being that's in front of us, and then asking who we can call for them. We don't want their phone number. That doesn't help us, because most likely their phone is going with them. But if they have a wife, if they have a kid, if they have a coworker nearby, getting a phone number that we can call, so when that person stops answering their phone, we can help tell them where this person has gone. And then afterwards, when you've left the scene, there's post-scene things that we'll go over first, but watch your video and make sure that you got everything. Like, did I get all 6 ICE agents that were there? Did I get the ICE agent kicking the guy? Whatever the case may be. If your video didn't record it, write down notes, because your memory fades over time. So doing it fresh is super important. You can take notes wherever you want. You can also send them directly to the Signal chat. We're asking you to do a debrief in the Signal chat anyways, so you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So that was best case scenario. That was, we get a hotline, it's a one-on-one, the situation isn't a big deal. This is if there is a surge, if stuff gets worse, if what we're seeing in Maine is happening near you. Some of the things that are different, use your own discretion if you choose to wear a mask. The pros are your identity is hidden from the ICE agents. It makes you less likely to be targeted later. The cons are everything else. The person who's being detained can't see a friendly face. You're detaching yourself from the situation. We're not telling you what to do. We're just saying, have a conversation with yourself now. So if you choose to want to be wearing a mask, just keep one in your car, keep one in your jacket pocket. So if you want to wear one, you have one with you. And then obviously leave anything that could be perceived as probable cause for any law enforcement agent to pay attention to, leave it at home. If you have a gun, even if it's legally registered, you're allowed to carry it, whatever, leave it at home. It doesn't need to be with you. We've all seen the Alex Preddy case. We assume that they know that he had a gun legally. We don't need to give them any reason to escalate anything. If you don't already have a lawyer, you can find the National Lawyers Guild. We don't think it's currently active in New Hampshire. We think they're overburdened, but everywhere else, there is a statewide one that you can write a number on. And if you don't have a lawyer, you can still say, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to a lawyer first, even if you don't have one. And then also, like, I've known my wife for 6 years. I still don't remember her phone number in a time of crisis. Like when they're like, CVS, what's her phone number? I'm like, crap, I don't remember. So I would probably write it on my arm in a Sharpie, just so that when I'm just been arrested possibly, and I'm like, I get one phone call, like, I don't know anyone's phone number except for my dad. And he would yell at me if I was calling him after getting arrested. And then when there's a surge or a raid, never go alone. Always bring someone else. It doesn't need to be someone that's trained, as long as you think that they would comply with you directing them to, like, hey, you need to take a step back if they get too loud, too aggressive. But if you have like a clergy member, your wife, whatever, you can bring them with you. And then we're going to go over whistles. In New Hampshire, there's very few parts of the state that whistles would be a productive thing to use, because there's not a high amount of concentrations of immigrant communities. They're picking them up off of an apartment building where like maybe if you blew your whistle, one person would hear you and come outside. But in more populated areas like in Boston and in Worcester, whistles are possibly going to be helpful. The con to them is you're saying, hey, ICE agents, I'm over here. So use at your discretion. Obviously, if there's one ICE agent picking up one person, blowing your whistle isn't going to do anything because the point of the whistles is to draw attention to the situation. And if there's only one person, you don't need to draw attention to it. So this is the whistle protocol that they've been using in Minneapolis. They're the ones that kind of are pioneering it currently. So we're just sticking to training that across the country, keep it uniform. There are two options for blowing your whistle. One is if you see ICE and they're just like roaming, they're driving around. We know they're just looking for the non-white people when they're doing surges. So giving a warning saying, hey, if you are susceptible to immigration, go inside, go in your car, lock your door, don't answer the door if people knock on it. That is just a broken cadence. So it's a whoop, whoop, whoop. And that will warn people, go away. And then the second one is if there's ICE actually detaining people and things are getting out of hand and you need more eyeballs to come to you, it's holding the whistle for as long as you can, take a breath and hold it as long as you can. You're just trying to make a consistent and steady noise. So if it's a broken tone, they're roaming, and if it's a single tone, they're abducting. Okay, so what happens after you've seen ICE pick someone up? There is a community flyer, which is applicable only to New Hampshire, but all of the nonprofits, I'm sure, have some or are happy to make some for you. But it includes like trusted lawyers. There's a lot of lawyers that are taking advantage of the situation, making money and not helping, which is super unfortunate. But like at least in New Hampshire, they've weeded out the lawyers that are actually doing a good job and helping. It's us, it's our information, so they can contact us. There are networks within all of the nonprofits where we go if in New Hampshire, the people that they're taking are primarily men, which are primarily the breadwinners. So they're leaving wife and children behind. So there's organizations, there's teams where we can bring groceries. We can do like escorts to court if they have a court case. After if they happen to get released, things like that, that we can help with. And then the ICE detainee locator, a brief note, if you guys haven't gone there yet, there's two ways you can find someone. It requires a lot of information you're probably not going to get from the person who's being abducted actively. But that's why it's important to try and get a family member's phone number so that we can hopefully get the information from them. You need their country of origin and their A number, which is kind of like a social security number when you go through immigration proceedings. Nobody ever is going to remember that off the top of their head. Or you need their full name spelled correctly, which means you need to get the correct spelling and ICE needs to upload it correctly, which isn't happening. So you need their name, their country of origin, and their date of birth. So it's a lot of information to be able to try and find them. And on top of that, the locator isn't updated. Like there's somebody that got picked up in, I think, Manchester, and it took like 15 days for him to be in the system. And they were told that he was in Burlington, but he was in Texas. So it's not always accurate, even if you have all the information you need. But all of that aside, talk to the people. If there's obviously somebody, they're like, oh my God, my brother, talk to them. If there's other people there, just say like, hey, do you know the guy that just got taken? Try and get as much information as you can once ICE has left. And then send the notes, send the video to the rapid response team. For starters, it's going to keep it off of your phone. If somebody decides that they saw you recording and they want to come try and smack your phone out of your hands, it's not, it's in the cloud now, so it's protected. And also we'll be able to see, okay, this is what ICE looks like, this is where they were. So maybe if they go somewhere else today, it'll help us. And then debriefing with the response team is also important to check your emotions, because yes, you're not the one getting arrested, but it is still going to be something that impacts your emotional well-being. If you don't have people in your life that you feel like I can have this conversation with you guys are lucky or atypical training session where you guys have a much more established network where you could talk to each other. But if you're like, no, I don't trust any of these people, the people in the response team have been to responses. We've done this training. So you can say like, hey, I'm super stressed. Can someone grab a coffee with me? Because we are a safe space there. They're all going through the same thing and having the same thoughts and feelings. And then calling your elected officials, telling your state delegate, your federal delegates, hey, this is what happened. This is super messed up. This is how I feel about it. And also just updating them because so many detainments are happening that if we're not a witness to, we don't even know that they're happening. They might not know. Their oversight is being limited every single day. So telling them so at least they know that it happened. Okay. So other scenarios, if it's not one of those two things, so sometimes we get hotline calls and we show up and ICE isn't there. It happens a lot, especially because they're so fast. So going to businesses or talking to people that are standing outside, we all know we're busybodies. We see blue lights and we're like, what's happening outside? So there might be somebody standing outside that saw something that's helpful. It might be the brother of the person that just got taken. A story about this, which is why it's so important. So Tori, one of the staff members for GSOP, they got an ICE call. She was at the GSOP office and it was at an apartment building like 2-3 minutes away. She's like, okay, I'll go. So she grabs her stuff, she runs, she goes, and there's nothing. There's nobody. There's one single woman just standing outside. And the introvert in all of us, after we're like, oh, okay, we can actually deflate because we're coming into a crisis and now the crisis isn't here. So we deflate. We're like, oh, let's just retreat. She's like, no, I should go talk to this woman and see. So she goes up to her and she's like, hey, did you see what just happened? She's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And Tori was like, oh, well, I heard that maybe there was somebody that got arrested, somebody that was detained. Maybe ICE was here trying to feel out how this woman feels about what she just saw. And she was like, are you with an organization? Like very distrustful. And luckily Tori was like, oh, here's my business card. Yes, I am with an organization. And the woman reads it, stares at it for a minute and says, come with me. Brings her inside her apartment. The ICE agents had been knocking on their door just a few minutes beforehand. They were asking for the name of someone who did not live there. But there was an immigrant family that was in the apartment and the father, what did she say? His work visa expired like 24 hours,
yeah,
48 hours ahead of time, like just expired. And so they were hidden upstairs in the back room. They were crying. They were terrified. And ICE wasn't even looking for the person that was in the apartment. They quickly packed up their stuff. Tori was able to like make sure that they removed themselves from the area safely. They're in a hotel. They're fine now. And we have a connection to them now. So we can supply aid and support to them. And if Tori hadn't talked to them, well, they weren't looking for them. So we didn't even know that they were there. ICE didn't know they were there. But now we have another connection with a family that needs help. And so that's why it's important to ask for people in the immediate area if you don't see anything. So something that could happen is you're just driving and you see ICE. This happened to me before I did any of the training and before we knew what New Hampshire was doing. But I was just driving down the main road in Milford and they were raiding a house that had all of the staff for a Mexican restaurant living in it. And I saw a few unmarked cars and like 6 or 7 town police cars. So I didn't really think it could be ICE because there was so many town police and they have not signed a 287G agreement. So they shouldn't have been participating, which is a whole side quest conversation. But had I known what I know now, I would have pulled over and been like, what's happening? Because it can happen. It happened to me. So it didn't happen to anyone. It happened in Milford. There's like 3 people there. So so the most important thing is if that were to happen to you and you were actually to go see what was going on, you don't need to call the hotline and you don't need to tell the signal chat right away because the point of those steps is to get somebody on scene and you're already there. Starting recording because you've already missed something, right? If you're getting there when you see the lights and the guys yelling, you've already missed part of the interaction. So recording as much as you can. This happened to somebody in Nashua. We've been doing court watch since Trump was inaugurated because last time he was picking up people when they were going in and out of their court cases. So we've been doing court watch. Luckily, one of our volunteers, he was there at 7:15 in the morning and he sees a lot of suspicious activity. He's like, hey, I think ICE is at the courthouse. The guy just happened to the one that they were picking up, just unluckily parked near, like directly beside where all the ICE agents were staging. They asked him his name. He told them their name. They arrested him, they put him in their car and they drove away. It was like 3 minutes from start to finish. And if we hadn't been there, we'd have had no idea. But he didn't start recording first because we didn't know that it was happening that fast. And also, you're a human being, you're fallible. You don't, like, I can tell you this a million times and I still might not do it in the moment. I don't know. But because he wasn't recording right away, he missed thing being recorded, right? So he asked for his name. The guy spoke Spanish. Luckily, the volunteer speaks very, very, very good Spanish, but he had 5 names, which is normal for a lot of the immigrants that we see being detained. And he, after the fact, couldn't remember it, all of them. So when we were trying to locate him in the detainee locator, we didn't have all of his name, or we had like something that was close to it. And then also he asked for his phone number and he like texted it. So he had it, but he had the detainee's phone number, not the loved one's phone number, which wasn't helpful because his phone was in his pocket. So if he had been recording, at a minimum, his correct name would have been recorded. So we would have been able to find him earlier, because it took like 18 hours to track down his family. And that whole time, this man is missing. His family doesn't know where he is, and we can't help him because we don't know where he is. And then after the fact, go to the Signal chat, say, hey, I was at a courthouse. I watched somebody get arrested. This is the video. And then the last scenario that happens is we see ICE allegedly on Reddit threads, on Facebook, on TikTok. Somebody will post something. It just happened to me. I live in Milford. I work in Nashua. My wife was at home. There was a Facebook thread that was like, hey, there's a bunch of police activity at Hitchner's, which is a like manufacturing facility in Milford. There's a lot of employees, a lot of immigrants that work there. We've been chatting with the owner, trying to have conversations with him, but we know that there's a lot of immigrants that work there. And it was like, is it police? Is there a fire? And then he was like, no, I think it's ICE. And then like 4 or 5 people were like, hey, yeah, I work here. I think ICE is here. So I was like, well, shit, that's a lot of people. And it sounds like there's a lot of cars there. So I called my wife and I was like, please drive through Hitchner's, drive through the parking lot, see what's going on. And so she drove by and luckily it wasn't, there was like somebody pulled the fire alarm, which was ideal case, I guess. But until you know that there's ICE, if you can respond, we live like 2 minutes away. So by the time she would have put in the Signal chat group and somebody else could have figured, she would have been there. So it was just faster for her to go. But if it's, let's say my wife wasn't home, I would put in the Signal chat like, hey, there is alleged ICE activity here. Can anybody make it? And also call your hotline. Because if you're on Reddit, if any of you are on Reddit, I'm sorry, but also good. But like maybe I see something in Portsmouth and I'm like, I can't get to Portsmouth in 10 minutes. I would call the hotline and tell them what I saw. Tell them it's from social media so we know that it's unverified. But maybe it's not ICE and we wasted a minute driving, but maybe it is, and it's one more person that we can help. But yeah, so if you're there, you can go. Just respond, same thing. You don't need to go through the steps of getting the hotline and the Signal chat involved because you can respond. But if you can't, call the hotline and they'll be able to send it to the local Signal chat groups.
Just really quickly, there's some stuff in the chat that's happening too. The hotline number is going to be specific to your area.
Yeah.
Right. So like we have a hotline number that covers basically all of New Hampshire. Calling the New Hampshire hotline is not going to help something that's happening like in Chelmsford or in Maine or in Vermont. So there are various numbers, and I think
it's the last slide.
Yeah, our last slide. So you got to stick through to the end. The last slide does have a collection of some of the numbers that you might be using. It's also possible that like as you all start to organize, that you start to kind of find ways to communicate with each other, and maybe you created a hotline that doesn't exist yet. So this is kind of, again, this is like specific to New Hampshire. So if you're like, what's the hotline number? We don't know. It depends on where you are and who you're connected to and where you work, right? Like where you work versus where you live and that sort of stuff. So this is where community comes in handy. Who do you need to connect to? Who's going to be most helpful for you to be involved in? So I just want to address that.
Please let people know that we have a main resource page in our conference website. After this, next week, we're going to update and going to add these information that we can find out about hotlines.
Okay, amazing.
Wondering about maybe I will join the signal chat.
Yep.
Group, things like that.
Yeah.
There's gonna be information coming.
Okay,
Okay, awesome.
stay
On
tuned.
the main,
Yeah, our
Main.
conference.
okay.
Right.
Okay, so we told you what to do. Now what telling you not to do. It's all pretty straightforward. It's all fairly common sense. Um, don't pretend it's 2020 COVID times. Don't get within 6 feet of them for a couple of reasons. Mostly just be out of arm's reach from them. You don't want to give them a reason to think that you're encroaching on their personal bubble. So you are now a threat. But also just so that if you just stay 6 feet away from them. We're not trying to stop the arrest for a number of reasons. One, because you can't. There's so many more ICE agents than there are of you, one person showing up to a parking lot. But also it's just going to make the life of the person being detained that much more difficult. They're going to get mad. Their egos are going to be hurt because somebody was yelling at them, and they're going to take it out on the person that they've detained. So just record, but don't intervene. Obviously don't yell at them. I know I've seen a lot of videos and some very exciting and funny insults that people have been throwing at the ICE officers. And while I appreciate that, it's not helpful to the situation for the same reasons as trying to stop them. Don't share the videos or the pictures on social media. Primarily because you don't have the consent of the person who is detained. It may be used in court, and putting it on social media may be something that hurts their case to not be deported. And when we put it in the signal chat, we give it to the people that are going to be interacting with the family members of the person that's been detained. And we usually get them the video so that they can use it for their court case. And if they want to put it on social media, that's on them, but they would then have the consent. It's not our responsibility to do that. It would do a lot more harm than good as far as we've seen. We went over don't use your car as a weapon, obviously. And then same thing, yeah, drugs. And then if you're out to dinner and you've had a drink, even if it's just one drink and you're perfectly safe to drive, you show up to a response and the ICE agent's like, I smell beer on your breath. You must be drunk. Now they have probable cause to treat you like someone that's not a helpful observer. And then obviously if you have living things that cannot consent to participating and responding, like your dog, your kid, an elderly grandparent that you're taking care of, just don't respond. And when you see the response call from the signal chat and you can't go, what do we do?
Nothing.
Yay.
All right, so I'm not going to go over these, mostly because my pronunciation of Spanish is not amazing. In New Hampshire, which this is going to be specific to where your local region is, you're going to know what the most predominant language is spoken for your immigrant community. Where we are, it's Spanish. So we're advocating people learn just a couple of easy phrases in Spanish. If you have the brain capacity to learn these in multiple languages, please do. But there's also some nonverbal communication that we can practice in the role play, where if you learn 15 languages and they speak one that you don't know, because there's, hundreds of languages, you can still communicate with them. But for whatever your local area is, learning, I'm here to help. What's your name and what's the phone number of a family member is, because that's the 3 pieces of information ideally we can convey to them. So learning that in Spanish. My recommendation is whatever phrases you're going to learn, print them out, and I stuck them on my windowsill above my sink. So when I'm washing my dishes, I just say them out loud 2 or 3 times, and I'm doing that every day. So hypothetically, a couple of the words will rattle around in there. So when I get to a situation, I'll be able to be like, "Ayuda," and they'll be like, "Help." Okay. But it'll be better than nothing. Okay, so responding, whatever the situation looks like, is not a guaranteed safe activity. So you need to just calculate what this looks like for yourself. Even in the super chill scenarios in New Hampshire where nobody's yelling, nobody's running, everybody's calm, something still may escalate that's out of your control. So you are not adverse to any risk by participating in these types of things. Your number one priority is keeping the situation safe, primarily for yourself put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help others. And next is the detainee, and everyone else is kind of secondary because those are the two most important people at the scene from your perspective. And if you are not helping the situation remain safe or cannot make the situation safe however you think you can, you are allowed to leave or reduce your involvement however you want. So if you show up and you're like, oh, they're mad, I'm going to record, but I'm going to record from 20 feet away and I'm not going to talk because I don't want them to look at me. That's okay. That's still better than nothing. And if you're doing that and they're screaming at all the observers around, you can stop recording. If they say, hey, you can't record, you can stop recording. You can take notes. You can just repeat the phone number they said out loud in your head over and over and over again while watching to make sure if something happens, you've eyeballed it. And you can leave. You can leave. Obviously, you can't help the detainee if you leave, but you can head back to the situation, right? Like you can walk 2 blocks away, let the situation diffuse, walk back and talk to the people that were on scene, try and find a loved one, a coworker, if you don't want to be there anymore. And then keeping in mind that all of our privileges look differently and it's going to change from situation to situation, but the risk is not going to be evenly distributed amongst us. I'm a white woman. I come into these situations with a lot more privilege. So just keeping that in mind also, that if you show up and there's a white woman there that's mad and yelling, you can decide if you want her to take more of the risk because we have less of it perceived onto us from the racist ICE agents. I think that's the end of that section. So is there any questions about the protocol stuff for ICE response? We're going to go over to the know your rights legality stuff, but any questions? And then Audrey will check the chat. No?
Yeah, some people there's some information being shared in the chat. Yeah, I mean, if you have numbers that you know about in the chat, feel free to drop them in there. And again, we'll be sharing stuff at the end also.
Yeah. All right, so know your rights. There's a lot of, how do I say this nicely? We have rights. Everyone who's residing in the United States has rights afforded to us by our Constitution. However, that does not mean that they are being respected or upheld by the law enforcement officials that we are interacting with. So I can tell you what your rights are, but that does not mean that they are being protected. But it is important to know what they are so you know when they're being infringed upon, because documenting your constitutional rights being infringed upon is super important for yourself and also for the detainee. That's going to help their case as well. So can anyone tell me what the First Amendment in regards to these situations affords us, the First Amendment?
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech, yes, you can say, I guess, whatever you want. You can insult the ICE officers as long as you don't threaten them. That's technically protected, but maybe an escalation. But what about recording? Yeah, so that's what the First Amendment in this situation protects. It gives us the right to record law enforcement officials when they are performing their job duty. What about the Fourth Amendment?
Protection from search and seizure.
Yeah, and requiring judicial warrants. So it's both. So if you show up and you're not doing anything illegal and they say, hey, give me your phone, the Fourth Amendment is a protection for you're allowed to be recording and they're not allowed to take it from you. And then the judicial warrant thing is a very gray area. I'm sure you guys have seen the internal memo that DHS put out saying they don't need judicial warrants. That is still federally protected, right? Again, it's just not being upheld. And then one last thing, the Fifth Amendment. Say I plead the Fifth. What's that mean?
Second.
Yeah, I don't have to talk to you. And again, it's for everyone here, not just the legal residents. So our recommendation is just perhaps saying helpful trivia facts when you're on scene, because saying don't open your door might be inferred as trying to impede the arrest, whereas saying you have the right not to open your door It's just saying fun facts. It's not illegal. You're just a little trivia machine and that's legal. So just if you're in a situation and so multiple people in New Hampshire have been protected because they have not opened their door. In the Milford raid, there was, I think, 5 people that were detained because they were in like the living room. And one man was in his bedroom with the door closed and locked. And they knocked on the door and he did not open it and he did not get arrested. So, I mean, luckily he just knew or he was asleep maybe and didn't open his door by luck. We don't know. But if you're at an apartment complex or even in a car, it happened, I think, did Tori say it was in Manchester where somebody, they tried to arrest him. He closed and locked his car door and they didn't have a judicial warrant. They're not escalating things to this level of violence
They're not breaking windows yet.
yet. But if he was maybe looking like he was going to open his door, you say, you have the right not to open your door. You have the right not to talk to them. That is perfectly legal and you're not interfering. And if you get arrested for it and it goes to court, it's going to be dropped pretty easily because you're just stating facts. You're not instructing. So the legality of recording, first and foremost, if a law enforcement official is performing their job duties, you are legally allowed to record them. That is a First Amendment right. However, there are some caveats to that. If you are recording them while standing on public area, not blocking a road, not blocking the entrance to a building, not standing directly in front of a fire truck bay in a fire station, right? Then that's perfectly legal. And if they tell you to move, you can choose to comply at your own discretion. But if you stand on a public sidewalk, you are legally allowed to be there and you are legally allowed to record anything that you see from public land. So if somebody's being arrested from their house and the front door is open and you can see into their house from the sidewalk, you can record that because it's seen from public space. Areas with reasonable expectation of privacy, so like bathrooms, doctor's appointments, ERs, those types of places, you're not allowed to record in. You're going to have to look up your own state laws, but in New Hampshire, you are not allowed to have hidden cameras. So like the Meta glasses, a little spy cam, even if you just like put your phone in your pocket, that is considered hidden and not legal in New Hampshire. And let's see, I feel like I went over the thing. Oh, so if you are at like an apartment complex and ICE is in an interior hallway, you can walk in there, you can record. It's private property, so the resident or the owner can tell you to leave and you would then need to comply and then maybe just step back out of the public sidewalk and record the outside of the building so you could see them, bring them to their cars. But ICE cannot tell you to leave a private facility. If it's a private property, they can't tell you to leave. That's not their right to do. And then, yeah, we went over don't post on social media, but also don't live stream it because in most live streams, it goes away. And so then you don't have it on your phone. Yeah, question.
There's something to point out. Churches are considered private property.
Yes.
And so when you, and it doesn't matter who in the church tells somebody you are not allowed to be here or you're being asked to leave,
Mhm.
you at that point have said that this is now private space.
Right.
And if they violate that, they are in violation of the Constitution.
Yes. Yes. And one thing that I don't usually get to add to trainings, the ACLU has business response plans for immigration enforcement. They're the lawyers, they're the ones, if you want to find it, we can add it to our resource list. But one of the things that you can do if you think it's possible in your church that there's immigrants that feel like they might be susceptible and you want to make a safe place for them, a door, any door, it doesn't matter, that says employees only, private area. If they are behind that private area, ICE cannot supposed to enter that without a judicially signed valid warrant. So even if they're not an employee, if you put private area, like no entrance, whatever, and you tell the immigrants in your community, hey, if you're ever scared about a situation, just go stand in this room maybe. And ICE hypothetically they're not legally allowed to enter that space. Even if it was in public, even if they if your doors are open to the public, they could enter and then you could tell them to leave. But if there's a protected locked area, then that's what our suggestion is to business. So this is an example of warrants. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do have a question about and just hearing what you said, about places of worship being considered private. I've gone to the website, because at our church, we're going through this process of identifying that, and I'm not getting a clear message as to whether or not the entire church or just the sanctuary, is considered a private.
So
space.
from my
It's a
understanding,
time when worship is
open.
open.
Yeah.
And, so that's just
Yeah, so
conflicting.
we asked a civil rights attorney in New Hampshire, and she said that like if your church's doors are unlocked and your services are open to the public, it's a publicly accessible private space. So like you said, you can say, hey, this is private property, get out, and you can revoke their consent for them to be there. But the way to privatize that is maybe having just the clearly labeled sign that says this is not public access. You can say no public access, do not enter.
So I think our suggestion was that that's why in worship places, there was some tension, right?
Mhm.
We are supposed to welcome everybody,
Right,
but also there are people we should not welcome.
yeah,
So in this situation, the sign that we were asked to put it is that I need judicial warrant to enter this.
on your
space.
exterior door.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then the main
Mhm.
entrance, then the whole space
Mhm.
is at least have protection.
Yeah.
To do that, and that was powerful until the Supreme Court changed or the ruling.
Mhm.
That's why ICE no longer doesn't have to come into the church building.
Well, that hasn't been
Makes
tried
people
yet.
in transit.
Yeah, that actually hasn't gone to court yet. There are Supreme Court rulings on it, but the most recent one is from like 83. So they're doing whatever they want until somebody tells them to stop. And then even when the Supreme Court tells them to stop, they're still doing whatever they want anyways. So it doesn't matter, but technically they're not allowed to without a judicially signed warrant, which this is what this is. If you happen to get one of them to show you a warrant, which they never do, but if you happen to, this is what you need to look for. And it's a little bit blurry, but the important things are, so on the left side is the actual judicial warrant. On the top, it's going to say the district court. It's going to have a judge's signature on the bottom right-hand corner, and it's going to say like 47th district, whatever. It has to have the person's name spelled perfectly correct. It has to have the address perfectly correct, and they are only valid for 14 days. So if any of those details is wrong, it is not a legally binding judicial warrant, and you can tell them that you're refusing entry. On the right side is what they're using. These are their administrative warrants. These are the ones that aren't hypothetically being, they're not actually legal to enter private spaces. But on the top, it says Department of Homeland Security. It might say the ERO, the enforcement and removal operations. It has a immigration officer signature instead of a judge's signature on the bottom. Those are not something that you have to, that's not what they're supposed to be allowed to use to enter private spaces. So that's what the difference is. They almost never have an actual judicial warrant. They're almost always the immigration internal warrants, which are basically just like, hey, go arrest this person, maybe if you can find them, as opposed to actually allowing you to like enter into their house. And so again, this is true only for New Hampshire. But in New Hampshire, if you're in your car driving or stationary and they come up and ask you for your driver's license, if you're in the driver's seat, you have to give them your driver's license. You do have to provide them that. If you're not in your car, you don't have to say a single thing. You don't have to tell them your name. You don't have to tell them where you were born. You don't have to tell them what you were doing there. Our suggestion is not to say nothing because they might perceive that to be combative, but just saying, I have the right to remain silent. I hear you, and I have the right to remain silent. I'm exercising my right to remain silent so that they know that you've heard them and they're not going to start screaming at you, maybe trying to speak to you in different languages. But in New Hampshire, at least, yeah, you don't have to say a single thing unless you're in your car. Then you have to give them your driver's license. But even in your car, you don't have to give them your passport, and you still don't have to answer questions about where you were born or any immigration specific questions. I don't think that that's true for Massachusetts. I think in Mass, you have to give your name regardless of the situation, but you don't have to give your ID. But again, you'll have to check with your actual state law. But there's really good free judicial websites that go over that type of stuff online. So again, not being completely silent and staring at them without saying anything, it's not ideal. They're probably going to be mad about that. But these are helpful phrases that you can practice saying to yourself. So when they're trying to get you to do something that they don't have the legal right to do, you know how to respond. If they come up to you and they're like, hey, what are you doing here? Give me your phone. Asking if you're free to go means either they're arresting you and they would need probable cause in order to do that. And if you've done nothing wrong, they don't have probable cause, so your arrest would be invalid. And if they say no, then say, okay, I'm going to leave and walk away. Don't just keep standing there. I would say walk away. And then, yeah, I have the right to remain silent. If, even though you've done nothing wrong, they don't have probable cause, they're detaining you and they start searching your handbag, your pockets, your car, don't stop them, obviously, which is why we're saying don't bring anything that would give them reason to have probable cause to look at you a second time. But stating out loud, I'm not resisting, I'm not interfering, but I don't consent to this search. So that you have it on video of, I'm not stopping you from searching my car, but I'm also telling you I don't consent to this happening because it would be illegal. You can ask for a warrant. They're not going to show it to you most likely, unless you are like the luckiest of lucky humans on the right day. But you can still ask, and having it on recording that they refuse to show you a warrant is helpful.
We'll be.
And then you can say, I'm not going to speak to you. I wish to speak to my attorney. I'm only going to talk to you with my attorney present. And you can say this even if you don't have an attorney. There are, if you have the National Lawyers Guild or you call your neighbor, they can Google you a lawyer and then you can use them. You can get one appointed to you based on income levels, but you can say that even if you don't actually have a lawyer. And then just saying anything they say. If you feel like it's something, so if an ICE agent, if I was 6 feet away from an ICE agent and they're like, hey, back up, I probably would to a certain degree, but I would say, I'm complying, I'm backing up, and I would actually take my phone and point it down at the ground so you watch my feet back up. So there's no question that I complied with what they asked me to do. I would back up like 2 steps, but I would still back up. I would still listen to them. And that's it for the Know Your Rights, all the legal stuff. I know a lot of it isn't applicable to all of New England, but does anyone have questions about any of that stuff? No? Anything in the chat?
No, we've got
Perfect.
some numbers that are being shared.
Some like hotline numbers?
Hotline numbers and yes, Signal is in the App Store. So it's a little like blue bubble with like white outline around it. So
Yeah.
if you're have not downloaded it yet, that's what it looks like.
And there's a slide about Signal for our suggestions for how to use it safely also.
Yep.
So we're gonna go into role plays. Obviously the people that are not physically present with us can't necessarily participate. And we have a little bit fewer humans in person than we thought we were going to. So you guys are probably gonna have to double duty the role play.
Yeah.
So no pressure, but yeah, get your acting chops up, take a little moment, do your me.
So what we're gonna scenario some role plays just to kind of give some, so you're not coming into things completely cold. We're just gonna give some scenarios that have happened
Mhm.
or you might run into.
Yeah.
So if you're online, maybe we'll kind of see how this goes. We'll describe what's gonna happen
Mhm.
and then
We'll see what you can see.
we'll see what you can see and put it together and then maybe yeah, we'll just kind of go for it.
So the first scenario is something that I described to you already. You guys, we're gonna have 4 ICE agents, 1 person being detained and 1 rapid responder. The rapid responder is going to be in the courthouse parking lot for their own business. You're going to pay a fine, going to testify for somebody. It doesn't matter why you're there. But you're going to be in your car in the parking lot waiting to walk into the courthouse when you see the detention happening, because we saw that happen. And we did it wrong. So we're trying to practice doing it right. So I need 6 volunteers. I think it's going to be most used. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, just stand up if you volunteer.
Perfect.
And
Okay.
several tickets on their side too.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it did. Cool. Okay.
One,
4,
two,
5,
four,
1 more.
5. We need one more volunteer.
Jonathan?
Good David.
Okay. Who do I want?
We're just gonna go down the road.
Okay.
So we've got, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Are you coming in?
I'm in.
All right. So we have ICE agent, ICE agent, ICE agent, ICE agent, detainee, rapid responder. Okay.
Happened to be me, huh?
Oh my goodness. That was just down the line.
Oh, wow.
Okay, Audrey's gonna brief the ICE agents on your behavior. If you wanna come over here, I'll give you your instruction.
Okay.
Okay, so we're basically going to be taking detainees. So we're basically going to be taking detainee from a location to a vehicle. And so you're just going to do some serving, or just basically head down, you're just going to be escorting. Right? So the person's gonna be, you're just gonna act as, okay, business as usual, we picked up somebody for taking. All
right, perfect. Yeah, you can do that.
That's your role. Not gonna get belligerent, you're not gonna do anything crazy, you're just gonna take out running. I know, sorry, Holly. I was thinking point A is over here,
Yeah, I have post-it notes too, but I think it's a smaller space, so we'll
Yeah.
be fine.
and then
So-
point B will, but maybe by the piano or something like that?
Yeah, so ICE officers, we're gonna have your cars be all the way over by the piano. So we'll have you start just like right beside this last chair here, as if so what we've seen in pickups is there are multiple vehicles. The ICE agents get out of their cars and like game plan. They're probably looking at the picture of the person they're coming to detain. So you guys can have your little evil powwow there. Evil powwow. And then you're gonna be in your car, and then how we'll start the scene is you're going into the courthouse. You're going into the courthouse, and the courthouse is gonna be, the doorway to the courthouse will be here.
Yeah.
Does that work? Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, the parking lot will be here. So you both are in your cars. When you exit your car, the ICE officers are gonna see you and walk towards you. So that's how we'll start. So whenever you're ready, get out of your car. Yeah, you can ask him his name. You can, yeah.
What's going on over here? I'm here to help. What's your name?
몰라. 이거 왜 이래? What's your name?
몰라요.
What's your 아유, 나쁜 사람들이야, 진짜.
I'm here to help.
백인들은 다 나빠. 아유, 씨. 아이, 몰라. No English. No English.
Do you have a spouse? Do you have someone I can call?
Wow.
You have a phone number I can call?
Pretty strong.
We don't want to make them actually drag you unless.
와, 모르는데 도와주세요. 여보세요. 도와주세요.
All right, well done. You've officially abducted him.
Okay.
Good job.
And scene, good job for ICE agents.
Yes, good job,
And our,
evil ICE agents.
and our detainee. All right. How was that for everybody?
So obviously you don't speak Korean.
I just don't, except for you always say, oh, and
You're like, I got the one.
Bibimbap.
So it was a little mean, but it was a example of you're gonna show up and you're gonna have no idea what the communication level is gonna be. So trying to practice, okay, I've said my English words, maybe I try my Spanish words if I think maybe they're speaking Spanish, Italian, Portuguese sound a little bit alike when they're speaking fastly. And if you dead end the information you've got for language in your brain, trying to practice, okay, how do I tell them like, I'm here to help you? How do I say, give me your phone number, like your phone number for your spouse, like trying to mime things like that. There are ways that you can communicate people without words, but they also have to be able to eyeball you without getting in the way of ICE officers and pinning yourself against like a tree. Obviously, I mean, like you'll just feel it and walk away, but like trying to be aware of your surroundings is most important. But there are ways that you can ask the questions without having to speak the same language, but it's not going to be easy. And your answer may not have been in a language that we understand. But when it's on video, it doesn't matter if I know what you're saying, because we can translate it from the video. So trying to get any information at all is going to be helpful than nothing. Is there feedback in the chat at all?
I forgot to stop sharing, so they basically couldn't see that role play, but I've changed it now so that they can see the full thing. How was it for you recording, David?
It felt good. It was interesting. At one point, I didn't find myself in the way, and I was like, "Oh, that's a problem." So I realized I had to step out.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things it's one of the things we've noticed in role plays too, is there's kind of like a tendency to like just be creeping a little bit, right? When you're like trying to get closer, you're trying to get information. And so it's tough recording because like you're sort of looking through the recording, but then you also have to have like situational awareness also, like what's happening around me while I'm recording. So like while you're recording, make sure you're recording, but you're also like in situational awareness, like how close you are, what's around you, what's behind you. Are you in a road? You know, like, is there cars around? Like, again, staying safe during the
And in
situation.
larger ICE responses, they are intentionally cattling people into dead ends. So being aware of where they're trying to manipulate you to go, so you're not now stuck without an exit, is also important. Because ideally, right, you scan the whole thing, you get everyone's faces, you get all the details, you get all the information perfectly on video. But even if you're recording and you're looking where you're going and you're facing the ground, if the detainee is speaking, it's still going to be picked up.
Yeah.
So it's still helpful. We're not, putting this on the big screen in the AMC movie theater. It's okay. It's not perfectly framed, perfectly lit.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
another thing, communicating, if the response is more than one person, or even if one person, we can have poster or written communication, like those questions, or I'm here to help in different languages, and
Hold it up.
hold it up. They
Yeah,
can see
everything
it.
is, the challenge is like everything is so context dependent,
Mhm.
right? Like if there's something that we're anticipating, that's one thing, but often this is, like we've said, like we haven't even been able to catch anything because by the time something
get there.
happens, like it's already over.
Mhm.
Like they're so efficient, right? They're
Yeah.
in, they're out. So we're talking about a lot of ideal situations, but a lot of the times we're going to be like collecting information post.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean,
detection.
they're intentionally trying to change their tactics so we don't see them.
Mhm.
That's what they're trying to do. They don't want us to catch them. Yeah,
So we was resisting.
yeah,
Uh,
which is normal.
Which,
Which
yeah.
is we've seen that awful life and death situations.
Mhm.
Should the bystander be advising them on how they should behave?
So it's not really a right that you can fun fact spout at them to say, stop resisting. I mean, you can say stop resisting, but you don't want to be telling the detainee what to do when when ICE already has hands on them, because now you're interfering.
Yeah, and that person may also, that person also has autonomy, and so they may be making decisions that are giving them any sort of feeling of empowerment in the moment, which may or not be helpful. But again, these things are fluid, so it's like we can say one thing, but every situation is going to be different. So you are going to have to kind of use your judgment.
I mean, I think it's okay to say things like, it's going to be okay. There are people here to help you. But as far as instructing them to do anything specific when they're already in the clutches, I don't think that it's a good idea to tell them to do anything specific. But also, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, so.
Right.
And I think this is a great point, that there are other ways that we can be in solidarity and support.
Yes.
There are different kinds of learning and training needed for our immigrant communities.
Yes.
Yes.
Congregations.
Yes.
And so if you know any, connection to the immigrant communities, this is where you can reach out and organize such kind of resource meetings, the trainings. What do you do actually when you are likely to be detaining?
Yes.
Different from bystanders.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we've done canvassing in our communities. We have like know your rights packets in multiple languages. We talked about that. We've gone to the businesses about putting up the private signs in their businesses. So
hotline numbers on there too.
right.
And just building a relationship with the immigrant community, like in Milford, I think it's like 1% of the population is non-white where I live. But most of them work or own businesses in town, which is amazing. And I realized like I eat at the Thai food place in town all the time, but I order it to go. And so they don't know what I look like. And so just being more aware of like showing my face in the immigrant areas of where I live. So if I'm in a situation where they're being detained, maybe they'll recognize me and they'll know like, oh, she's a good one, not a bad one, because I'm just a random strays like face in the street, right? Like you're not going to know, but trying to show face and trying to build relationships. It's one of the biggest things that we were trying to do, but also one of the hardest things because everyone is getting so isolated because everybody's scared, fully reasonably so, but trying to break down those barriers so that we build the relationships so that, yeah, if they're being detained and they're terrified and they see you and they'll be like, oh, hi, someone I know, help me, please. Which could help without having to say anything out loud.
So I want to bring it to the context of why I'm here, and that is to think about in a church facility, whether it's during a Sunday worship or maybe another gathering, and the situation that you just role played on, where ICE shows up for a deliberate. I'm going to go after this, member of our congregation,
Yep.
or
The old white-haired lady.
Or it could be, for example, at our church, there are other groups that may be using it, and
Right.
there could be some, staff members there, maybe only one staff member there.
Yep.
What does that training look like?
Basically the same.
Which is, it does. look the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. I mean, all of the legality aspects are the same regardless of the situation. If they're inside your church, if they're in the parking lot of your church, in New Hampshire, at least, they're waiting for people to leave buildings because it's less aggressive of a tactic. So if they knew that I'm looking for Ed and he's inside your church, she goes to your church on Sundays, they're gonna wait in the parking lot and they're gonna try and pick him up when he's outside of the building, at least as of now. That could change literally any day. But so it's the same. But you also have maybe a more close personal relationship with them if like they're part of your congregation, so you know them, which may change the way that you interact with them while recording. But as far as everything else goes, I feel like you wouldn't change anything because they're built around what's legal. Does that answer your question? Maybe.
But
Okay.
also there is a contextually that you can use, and I think we already put that in our resource page. This is similar to the immigrant congregations or churches that has much more exposure. So for example, we have a church that is using their church parking lot, ICE, like a sort of like a station. And this church has a lot of immigrant related ones. So they have adopted this suggestion that, first of all, you in those, hours of a lot of traffic to the church, you always have like a person who's at the door, if
Yep.
it's available.
Yep.
Yeah.
To have a sign up sheet to alert the people quickly, one. Second, they also created this practice that no immigrant or people who are vulnerable gonna be by themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Between their car and the church.
Yes.
Yes. Businesses are
Volunteers
doing
would
that too.
accompany them.
Yep.
That does
Mhm.
not prevent from ICE doing anything.
Right.
But we are doing what we can do.
Yeah.
Within
Yes.
the bounds of legality. So
Yes.
Yes.
there are a lot of details.
Yep.
In terms of, relationship building and providing, or your church can develop those practices and
Yes.
train volunteers.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We've been doing that with court accompaniments as well. There's a huge influx of people getting picked up, going to like normal civilian, like criminal court and also immigration court. And then we started doing accompaniments when people knew that they had these appointments, and just having a gaggle of white people around you is so helpful. And a lot of people we don't know if they were scheduled to be detained, but a lot of people weren't. Because again, at least as far as we've seen in the majority of New England, they don't want you to know that they're there. They don't want the fight. They don't want the publicity. They want to be stealth. They don't want you to know how many people and who and when they're being detained. So if they see who they're looking for and there's 2 white people beside them, they may leave them alone, even if they were waiting to pick them up. That's great. I didn't even think about this, but yes, and businesses are doing that too. There's a landscaping company. We were talking to a construction company owner, and they have immigrants on staff and talking about what do we do job sites? Because like we're outside. We can't like lock them in a room because there is no room. But talking about like vehicles and then escorting them from outside to their car. It's like the same thing with women at night when you leave. Like I used to bartend and I was never allowed to go to my car at night by myself. I had to wait for one of the other people so that you never go alone. It's like the Girl Scout buddy system.
Yeah, those are great suggestions.
Yeah.
But for the workplace, happened to be, I understood.
What an unfair advantage.
You said to ICE agent.
You'll be offended.
Maybe don't translate it.
As a bystander, if you are a person who understood the language.
Yeah.
He spoke,
Yeah.
what is the thing I can do and what is the thing I should do? So do I have to help us with some Korean word or?
I mean, you don't have to do anything. But-
Yeah.
Yeah. So have we all taken like CPR training? You know, you're first on scene, you're in charge. Now you're the delegate, you're in charge. So if I find someone unconscious, I start doing CPR, somebody else comes, I say, call 911, do whatever, right? So if you're the first person there and there's anyone else around and you're like, oh, wait, I understand what he's saying and everyone else very clearly does not, then you can say, you record. And then once you see them starting recording, then you can focus on the communication aspect of it and say like, hey, I'm here to help. What's your name? Do you have anyone whose phone number I can call for you? And ask those questions and just say like, it's going to be okay. Like, we know that you're being taken, so we can help you once you're like, what's the word? Processed.
Yeah.
But if you're alone, it's the same thing. You just have to communicate with them. I would say in that situation, prioritize communicating with them over getting it on frame, but keep it recording so that you get the audio, you get the answers. Cause I can't remember a phone number when you say it to me right now when I'm calm. So I'm not going to remember it if I leave when I watch you get arrested. So just having it recording, but I would prioritize, especially because if they're not like Canadian, their names may be difficult for us to remember and then spell correctly. So having it in recordings, and then we could say, hey, does anyone speak Korean? Can you give us best guess for how to spell this? Because like my wife is German, her name is really weird. If she wasn't like, if somebody German heard her name, they probably wouldn't spell it correctly. But if you have it recorded, then it helps.
Yeah, and
But-
context is gonna like matter. If
Yeah,
you already
100%.
know the person who's being, like, if you know the
If you know
person
them
who's being
personally,
detained,
yeah.
you don't have to ask for a phone number if you already know the phone, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like, if this is a stranger that you've never met, that's gonna be a little bit different. Mostly we're just trying to document, get information, figure out who we can notify, get help, because the thing that we don't want to happen, which has been the thing that's happened, is somebody, like she said, stealthily gets taken and then they just don't show up for an appointment and people
Right.
are like, where is this individual? And now we're trying to figure out, did they get taken?
Trying to
Right now we
figure
have
that.
no idea what happened. So we're just trying to like document, get information, and yeah, best we can.
So are communities reaching out to businesses that have immigrants to like have them document this information? Who are their relatives? Who are they? So if they
If they're not,
recognize that
you
something's
should.
missing, right? That
Yeah.
they know that they can call you like
Yeah.
like those touch points
Yeah.
where,
Yep.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
organizations saying, hey,
Yeah.
we're here to help.
Yeah.
We understand that you may have immigrants. We're
Yep.
just asking that you document these,
Yeah.
this
So
information.
speaking from exclusively our organization, at least in the central and southern part of the state, in I think April, we started doing canvassing and
Yep.
we went to the immigrant heavy residential areas and knocked on every single door and had little packets. And it's a bunch of things. It's a hotline card, which is the ICE response hotline card. It's a tiny little business card size thing that says your rights, and it says it in English on one side and whatever their like native languages or preferred language, whatever, on the other side. So they can read it if they want. They can also just hand it to them. And it says like, I don't consent to a search. I wish to speak to an attorney. I don't wish to speak to you. It says all of their afforded rights, and they can keep it in their pocket. It also had plans for businesses when we switched to doing businesses.
Yep.
So I would say at the end of the slide, there's a list of nonprofits. I think there's like 4 or 5. There's one for each state that Sarah Jane, the head of GSOP, has connected us with. They may be the best resource for that, but if somebody hasn't done it in your community, you should do it. It was taxing. It took us months because it took a group of volunteers to be trained on what's legal or not, because you can't like put it in their mailbox because that's illegal, like little things like that. And then physically boots on the ground, walking to all of these places. We did it once a week for like 9 months, and
Yeah.
we still didn't hit everyone, and we did the best that we could. Yeah.
Just to tie in, many of our churches have food pantries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And many of our friends who receive food can help us get to know who they are.
Yeah.
And the thing to note is to make sure that that information is in a very safe location.
Yes.
Secure place.
Yeah.
But also for providing help with families. So if somebody
Yes.
doesn't
Yes.
disappear.
Yeah.
That you can deliver food and groceries to be a part of that recovery for that
Yes.
community.
Yep, 100%. There are families that are in hiding right now that are sustaining from nonprofits helping them. So, yeah.
A new underground, right?
I mean, honestly.
Yeah, it
I
is.
mean, honestly, yeah, I mean, Signal is Signal is doing a lot of good work.
Signal's a new like candle in the window.
Yeah, kind of.
Hmm.
Should we hit grounding and then kind of move through the other things more quickly? Just
Yeah, there's a
in
second
sorts
role
of
play,
time?
but
I think we're gonna, yeah, I think a
We're
lot of
also a
the,
tad behind.
yeah, and I think a lot of the stuff like you were talking about, it will be the most likely scenario for you is gonna be congregation specific.
yeah,
Right? So even having these conversations have a little bit more context of like what we're seeing. Okay, well, how might that play out, right? How much you have buddy systems? How might you kind of create a plan within your own?
and if you guys
congregation?
develop a plan, you can email it to GSOP and they can look at it and make sure that everything you're planning to do is legal. And if they have any like feedback or suggestions, then it can be tweaked and to make the best we can. And then we can give it to every church. So we do this training too.
Yeah, and we were, like I said, we're in communication with folks in different areas around kind of
The
best
country,
practices. Yeah,
Right.
All right.
all right, I gotta figure out how to share again. Bonding techniques. Great. Oh, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be. Love that. All right, so I also think that, we're good. So I think one of the things too that, I think you all probably have more access to grounding than a lot of folks do.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have access to your faith, you have access to prayer, you have access to your congregation, right? You have access in a way that maybe other people don't have a practice already. So like grounding is a practice, right? So we're just talking about practices that you can do on a regular basis. It's the same thing with de-escalation, where like anything that you want to use to help ground yourself, to help keep things calm, you want to do that every day, right? Because if you don't have a practice, you're not going to show up at a stressful scene, and all of a sudden magically think that you're gonna be able to remember anything, right? Honestly, like you're gonna be like, I've got this, right? I've did this training, I've got all this information. You're gonna show up, your adrenaline's gonna go through the roof and your mind's gonna go blank. And you're gonna be like, great, okay, cool. I have all this information, but I can't access it, right? So having grounding techniques, having things that work for you. And so maybe you already have some of those, right? So maybe you find that prayer really works. Maybe you find that breathing really works. So if you have a practice that works for you, use that. If you're not really sure what might be a good grounding technique, I'll just introduce a couple that are good for, like we talked about earlier, we have concepts of what's been happening, and then we have reality of what's in front of us, right? So we may be thinking something and our body's responding to that thing we're thinking about, but we're not actually in the moment with what's happening. So one thing we can do is ground ourselves with our physical environment. So what that means is actually looking around. So right now, as I'm talking, if you're on Zoom, do the same thing. Look around the room. So turn your head and look over your shoulders, look over each shoulder. Look above you, look at the ceiling, look below you, look at the floor. Notice how quickly you're moving. Are you just scanning? Are you actually seeing anything? Right, that's going to give you information about the state of your system, right? The state of your nervous system. Are you actually like here? Can you see things? Are you seeing people? Because that's going to help you know if you're going to actually be able to use your brain, right? In certain states, we kind of surpass the like thinking and we go right into instinct. So looking around and grounding yourself in what's actually here. Same thing while you're on a scene, right? Again, situational awareness, what's around me, what am I seeing? Feeling my feet on the ground. So gravity is going to be another thing that's going to be really helpful, right? You're always in relationship to gravity, right? Unless you're on a different planet and you're floating above the ground somehow, you are in relationship to gravity. So you can feel your feet on the ground. You can feel your butt on the seat. Maybe you can feel the texture of your clothing. You can actually even feel, okay, right? Maybe I'm gonna put my hands on my shoulders, give myself a little hug, feel pressure, right? So again, keeping myself present with what's happening right here, right now. Breath is a really good one too, right? If you're alive, you're breathing. And so being aware of that, right? I just saw somebody put their hand to their chest, right? Maybe you're actually feeling your breath happening in a moment. Maybe you're feeling your heartbeat. Fun fact, your heart can actually move around. So sometimes your heart is in a different location. So you might actually even want to locate it. Feeling your lungs expand, feeling your lungs deflate, maybe even taking a deliberate breath. Did somebody talk about box breathing today yet? Did we talk about that? Right, the box breathing. So the box breath is an inhale, a hold, an exhale, and a hold. They call that the box breath of the Navy SEAL breath. So maybe we can just do a few of those together just for our practice. So take an inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. One more. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. And let that go. That was kind of a quick box breath. You can do that much slower than that also. But that's something that is going to help you physically, right? When you can have influence over your body, it's going to help you have a little bit more influence over your mind too. Think a little bit more clearly.
It's even good for your blood pressure.
It's good for your blood pressure. Yes, all of these things. So again, these are things, having some grounding. And if you're consuming information, if you're reading things that are upsetting, right? There's such a thing as secondary trauma, right? Vicarious trauma. So when we are consuming information, seeing images that aren't happening to us, but are happening to other people, that influences us also too. So making sure that you are always coming back to your physical reality, your physical safety in the safe room, right? Breathing, grounding yourself in that, because that's what's going to help you stay resilient and healthy when you are talking about all these things, which are really upsetting.
Someone in the chat suggested singing, which is a great idea.
Yes.
I'm very excited. The
Yeah.
UU church near us is doing a singing workshop, like protest song. I think it's tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I don't
Singing,
sing well, but I like it.
humming, dancing, moving, right? All of these things. And we can do it in community
Like
better.
handheld.
There is a question in the chat. We're gonna go over it a little bit. Katarina asked if you're confronted by ICE and they take your recording device, what's your recommendation? I mean, obviously, don't try and stop them from taking your phone. You can say I'm not interfering, but I don't consent to you searching my mobile device. We will also go over in a minute the security that we recommend for your phone.
Yep.
To try and prioritize the safety of the recordings on it. So we'll answer it a little bit more in a second.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna go through ICE in New Hampshire pretty quickly because it's pretty like basic in terms of what we're seeing. So like we said, we haven't had surges in New Hampshire. So this is very individual targeted stuff, people being pulled over at gas stations. We've had situations where people were actually tricked into coming to the ICE office where they basically were on a Saturday, basically said, hey, you got to come in. People showed up and were basically taken. Like one person had signed again, people should be counseled to never sign anything. One person did end up signing something and they got, I think they ended up in Louisiana. It was bad scene. Courthouses, like we mentioned, people are there doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're getting taken. Mexican restaurants, apartment raids. We in New Hampshire have a lot of sheriffs who have signed 287G agreements, which basically means that local law enforcement are cooperating and working with ICE actively. We have an individual, the Troy police chief, who was at January 6th, has been using his influence to do things that have not been.
Yeah, he's pulling people over randomly on the one road in town and checking their immigration status,
Yeah.
but he's pulling them over for no real reason.
Right.
So if you can avoid Troy, just don't go there.
Yeah, the ACLU has had,
Upstate.
New Hampshire. ACLU is has
suing
filed,
him.
has filed a suit. Unmarked vehicles. All right, so the thing about these next few slides is like there's not much to say other than like this is not an obvious thing. They're unmarked cars, they're switching license plates, they're gray often. They usually don't have things like, they usually don't have personalized things like bumper stickers or things hanging from the rear mirror, right? They're just very plain, right? Because the whole thing is they want to get in and out and not be noticed, so nothing is very obvious. So these are some examples of those vehicles. Again, there's nothing that says ICE on it or anything like that. You may be looking for hidden lights on the windshield or grille. So that is something that may clue you in that it's possibly a nice vehicle, that you can see like the little lights right on the top of the windshield or in the grille itself. Again, I wish we had better information. ICE officers, same thing, usually white males, close cropped hair. Sometimes they have beards. In ICE, again, they're not in ICE. In New Hampshire, they're not really wearing masks. There's two that do. Sometimes they're American flag patches. They have the ERO, tactical vests. So again, this is kind of what you would see. And these are the other agencies that we might see working with ICE. So ERO, like we mentioned, DEA, FBI might be there. In our area, we have the Hillsborough County Sheriff and a couple of other sheriffs, which we are all actively lobbying to cancel their contracts because they can do that at any point. And local police may accompany ICE. So basically, like if certain towns basically said we are not getting involved, but if ICE basically requests that they participate, I think they are basically required to.
Yeah, like in
So-
Nashua, the courthouse pickup, although the Nashua police chief has actively told us multiple times that he's not going to be interacting with ICE in a way that's helpful unless they're specifically asked. So when they did the courthouse pickup, there were 2 Nashua police officers there. They stayed in their cars. They were there to like do traffic control. They just sat in their cars in the parking lot. They didn't do anything. They didn't get out. ICE did their pickup and they left, and the Nashua PD left. But if they're requested by a federal agency to help, they do have to assist to whatever degree that looks like. So Nashua PD, they said, come help with traffic control. And they said, sure, I'll park my car in the parking lot. So that's as much as they've helped, but
Right.
not all local police are going to be that wishy-washy about helping.
Yep. All right. So ICE in New England is a little bit more complicated again for us because we're in New Hampshire specifically, and really like we should all be pretty hyper local in terms of our like concentration, right? You should be in your own communities. If anybody in the chat, if you want to throw anybody who has experience online, if you want to throw anything in the chat, if there's any other ICE information that folks know about here that we are not aware of.
Yeah.
Because again, we're just hyper local, so we can't keep eyes on everything.
So we're aware of the pickups in Maine and that some of the Maine people are being brought to Burlington.
Yes.
Yes.
And then just
And
put out on the street to find a way back to Maine.
Yes, we've heard that happen in a couple of different areas also, right? Where people get detained, they get taken, and then they're just like, all right, you're free to go.
Anywhere. Yeah.
So, okay.
Are you noticing any patterns that would suggest quotas? Like, is there heightened
We know
activity
there's
at the end of the month
quotas.
or something like that?
So in New Hampshire, we've had triple the amount of detentions. So starting with this administration,
Like in July, yeah.
starting in July, there's basically been 3 times the amount of detentions that there were prior. So the activity has increased. I don't know what that means, though. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what if it's due to a quota or what the story is, but we do know that a lot of people getting picked up are not the people that they say they are trying to remove.
Well, and the Hillsborough sheriff met with GSOP last week, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
And he's up for re-election, so I think he's backing off of what he was consenting to doing earlier. But he said like they send him a list of people to pick up.
Oh, yeah.
And he says that he's just throwing it away. We don't know if that's true or not because he doesn't give us the list, obviously. And if he's picking people up, it would look like a normal traffic stop, which is the worst part about those types of agreements is like, I don't know what I'm looking like. A car gets like stopped because there's a headlight out or whatever, then the 287G agreements allow them to check their immigration status. And then if they are not documented to whatever they decide is the correct threshold at this day, then they can detain them and then hand them off to ICE, which makes it so much harder for us to know. And also the detainee locators not being updated properly. And even if it was, we would have to know that there's somebody missing to search for them. So in all honesty, we don't know, which is horrifying.
Yeah. The 287, thank you for mentioning it. The 287G agreements too often come with a bunch of money and perks.
Yeah.
Which the Hillsborough County Sheriff
Says
says
he's
that
not.
he's not taking because he doesn't want to be beholden.
Mhm.
But I would imagine that that's not necessarily true of everybody who is signing 287G agreements. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of money, there's a lot of influence, there's a lot of requests coming in.
And there is a nonprofit, a federal nonprofit that's tracking the 287G agreements. If you Google like 287G tracker, it's the first one that pops up and you can type in your towns and your counties around you to see, because they're signing them and then not making it public. They're only saying things if people call them out on them.
I just want to see if there's any,
Questions?
yeah. Yeah, we do have a
so
list.
yes, yeah, so there's, the locator is the most accurate. We tried keeping up with it, but they're doing a better job. Difference between Border Patrol and ICE. So
Yeah.
so technically, Border Patrol is supposed to have a broader spectrum of capabilities than ICE is. Because like in New Hampshire, all of the state is within 100 miles of a coast, port of entry, or physical land border, which is what Border Patrol's limitations are. ICE is supposed to have less than that. They are supposed to be performing targeted, specific individual pickups that have judicially signed warrants attached to them. And they're supposed to be going after people who they're picking up people who are currently in legal proceedings for their status.
Mhm.
Like they're here on a valid refugee status trying to go through the process and they're picking them up. They're not undocumented. They're in the system. So that's what they're supposed to be doing. So the hard part about that is the rules don't matter anymore because they're not listening to them. So even if they had specific restrictions, they're not abiding by them. So it doesn't matter. Check with a man about our hotlines and handle.
Yeah,
immigration
Luce,
concerns.
is
Okay.
it Luce? I don't know if you pronounce
Luce.
it. Luce in
So, yeah.
Massachusetts is doing a lot of the work here. Yeah. All right, let's head to security and just kind of go through this pretty quickly. So, I found a lot of if you're a techie person and you are like really into this sort of stuff, I found a really interesting thread that if you have an iPhone, there are all sorts of security things that you can put into your phone that automatically do stuff that will if you hit a certain button, it automatically deletes your videos or it automatically locks out your phone, right? There's a whole bunch of things. Like for instance, iPhone has lockdown mode, which they just use when the journalists where they basically couldn't go through their phone because it was on lockdown mode.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of fun things that you can do here, but there's also really simple stuff. So we've also talked about if you're going to be recording, do you have a digital camera? Anybody still have a digital camera? Bring a digital camera instead of your phone, or people have brought, people have brought phones that they only use for recording, or they only bring to POTA, right? Phones that can't be traced. Put a passcode on your phone, so they can compel you to use biometrics. So that means like your face or a thumbprint, but they cannot compel you to use a code. So your phone should have passcode on it. So
And a 6-digit passcode, not a 4-digit passcode.
right. Think about clearing up space. Signal app, we've talked about using that as a communication because we also recommend that you don't use your full name on Signal. We've come up with all sorts of fun nicknames on Signal, so you can have your own little avatar. Know people's phone numbers, know your loved one's phone numbers so that if you can't get into your phone or somebody takes your phone, that you have all that information. When you have Signal groups, we recommend keeping them pretty tightly knit. So it's not just like letting everybody in, but only admitting people that you know firsthand, personally, that you can vet, because one of the issues that we've seen in like bigger situations where more intense organizing has been happening is that people get into the groups and then they start basically taking information and starting to, figure out what's going on, which we don't want.
Quick question.
Yeah.
On the first one, sort of is a suggestion that if you do use Face ID normally to open your phone.
Yep.
Take it off.
Disable that.
Yeah.
And respond.
Exactly right.
Gotcha.
And if you have an iPhone, I don't know about Androids, but there are a lot of really cool ways you can customize shortcuts.
Yes.
I have a police shortcut on my phone where if I click it, it's on my like main drop down. It's automatically starts recording on my front camera. So if I'm like being pulled over, wherever my phone is, it automatically records for 2 minutes. It texts it to my wife and it pins my location to my wife and my dad. And then it turns my brightness to 0. So it looks like my phone is off. Because one of the things that they're doing is they're turning people's phones on airplane mode. So then like, if my wife is like, where the hell did Laura go? She could track my phone. She has my phone's location, but if they put it on airplane mode, they can't do that.
Yep.
But if your brightness goes to 0, then it looks like your phone is off. So they can't see to put it in airplane mode.
Again, the text.
Fun. Yeah.
Text instead of
It's
email.
really easy to like Google, and like there's super easy steps on how to do it. The only thing that you can't make a shortcut for, at least not that I've been able to figure out, is I wanted a shortcut where I click on it and it turns my Signal notifications off. It turns my biometrics off. Like, I don't think you can shortcut those specific things. Maybe if you figure it out, let me know.
Yeah.
Because I've been hunting.
Yeah. All right. So anything in the chat? Did anybody say anything about security?
we
that we're gonna...
Yeah, we can also go to questions too. Now would be the best time to answer them probably, unless it's Signal specific, then we'll go over that in a second.
Yeah.
No?
Any questions? Yeah.
I haven't been here for the whole thing.
Totally fine.
This has been answered or not, but I'm wondering because at the area where we're at, we cross the border very often. If anything has been said about when you care packages for support.
I know.
Talking about passing out to people, whatever, they can have information from more than one state. Because there are people that are driving from Massachusetts to New Hampshire.
Right.
For work, at least in this area.
Yeah.
Very often.
Yeah.
If that's something to consider,
Yeah. Again, it's kind of going to be context specific to like the folks that you're in community with, right? So if you find that like, ooh, maybe it would be helpful to have both of them, then maybe that's something that, you compile, or we have, there's some version of Massachusetts and there's some new version of New Hampshire, and you share both of them. There's probably some universal things. But again, I feel like that's going to be kind of just specific to the folks that you're going to be interacting with. And
yeah, that is a good idea though. I know like we do a lot of work in Nashua where people are on both sides of the border. We should develop a closer relationship with the people that are doing the work in like Lowell and Tingsboro and those areas.
Yeah.
I'm sure that somebody else in GSOP is. I'm not in charge.
Again, this is like such a fluid situation. It's a lot of this is like preparedness, which is good.
Yeah.
But I think that, as things sort of happen, then procedures also start to develop, but that's a good.
Yeah.
Someone online has a question.
Yeah.
Julia Logan.
Yes, does anyone have the link for the singing workshop for tomorrow? Can they put it in the chat, please? Thank you.
Great. I don't have it, but it's at the Universalist Unitarian Church in Nashua.
Perfect.
Julia Logan, your hand is up. Could you unmute yourself?
Oh, sure. Countering Christian nationalism is in Nashville at the Unitarian Church.
ready to hot to trot.
That's her.
It's
Same church.
I'll be
They
there.
can't hear me.
We can hear you, yes.
United
Yeah.
Methodist, the United Methodist Church Main Street in Nashua is a co-sponsor. It's at 6:30 at the Unitarian Universalist Church downtown Nashua. We'd love to have you.
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
Lisa Bodwin from the New Hampshire Council of Churches and James McKim, the from the NAACP in Manchester, will be our speakers. Any other questions?
No, we'll see you there though. It's on my calendar.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great handouts for tomorrow night on countering Christian nationalism and how you can get involved.
Great. Love that.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest takeaway that I didn't think about is, and to our specific audience. If you know any immigrant neighbors.
Then I didn't have my drink
Businesses.
and I got caught up into it.
And get to know
Good at the
them.
beginning.
Yes.
Build relationships now,
Yes.
whether regardless of their exposed or not. I think that's probably the biggest, resistance that we can do. Because we are creating a fabric that could be there. It's
Mhm.
not like for this occasion.
Yeah.
It's changing our idea of being in what it means to be in community.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. I've been on the
How's the driving?
potlucks.
fine when I went.
More potlucks. We need more gatherings.
Side
We
roads
need,
were awful.
Sidewalk
but
parties,
Warwick
right?
Avenue and Post Road, no issue.
I don't know. It's gonna get.
I know.
But
kind of.
that's the whole point is yeah, exactly to your point. Build the communities, have the potlucks, have the communities, know your neighbors, all of that sort of stuff is ultimately what we should be doing anyway. And this is just something that should be just getting woven into what already exists. So.
We give a hand to our presenters, Audrey and Laura, thank you so much for getting this. And as we begin, recognizing that this is part of our calling as we resist evil in all the forms that it presents itself. This is how we ground ourselves in our baptismal vows, as we shared with us at the beginning. And thank you again for being a part of this with us. District Superintendent from this area, Commonwealth West, is here. And so I'm going to invite Megan to come and close our time in prayer. I will share with you that things that have been shared on chat, we will grab together and be able to put together in our resource page. So know that that's going to be collected as well. So come on, Megan, let's close our time.
And the PPT, right?
And a PowerPoint.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, we can get that there too. Close as you can.
That's good.
Let us join our hearts in prayer. Gracious God, we are grateful for this opportunity to learn more. And once we know more, then we can be a better advocate for our neighbors in need. Give us this holy boldness to be able to take a step out in faith as we are intentionally caring for our immigrant siblings, for our BIPOC siblings, for all of your children. We pray these things in your Son, Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
See you all later.
We can
Thank you.
wave our hands. Now,